All right. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Good evening.
I'm here with you, and I'm glad you guys could join me. This is the Unity of Livonia, a Course in Miracles study group. We're here on Tuesday, February 4th, according to my computer. And we are still in our study of psychotherapy. And just to let you know, I'm kind of monitoring. I'd anticipated we'd be done with psychotherapy and the Song of Prayer by the end of March. At the pace we're going, it may take us a week or so into April. But, every week I see what we finished and what remains, and I chart that out kind of on my schedule. So right now we're like a week behind, but all of that is quantitative stuff. And I'm not so much interested in that as much as I used to. We seem to enjoy taking our time and getting as much understanding as possible from this material. So without further ado, and I say without further ado to give us a chance to just spend the time we have on the material at hand. And I hope not to weary you too much because it is deep material. But tonight, we are almost done. We've got two more sections in part 2 of psychotherapy. Part 1 was purpose. Part 2, process, and part 3, which will start on page 18, is practice. So we're still in the process section, and tonight we're starting at Roman numeral 6 on page 13. We're on the definition of healing. So let's get our readers and just jump into the zone and get right into it. My friend Sherilyn is number 1, and then Frank, and then Hilda, and then Ron, and then Jones. So Sherilyn 1, Frank 2, Hilda. Wait, Hilda, are you reading?
I'll attempt it.
All right, dear. Thank you.
Yeah.
3, and Ron is 4, and Joan is 5. And by the way, I should have asked Frank, are you feeling like reading tonight? I know you were having
trouble, but I'll try.
All right, my friend.
Visual problems, but I'll try, ready.
All right, Sherilyn, you're our leader once again.
Okay, the definition of healing, paragraph 1. The process of psychotherapy, then, can be defined simply as forgiveness, for no healing can be anything else.
What page are you on?
13.
13.
At the
13,
bottom of 13.
I'm way ahead of you. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Well,
The hanging on.
not surprised.
You ready?
Okay, no, thank you.
Okay. The hanging on to guilt, its hugging close and sheltering, its loving protection and alert defense, all this is but the grim refusal to forgive. God may not enter here, the sick repeat over and over while they mourn their loss and yet rejoice in it. Healing occurs as a patient begins to hear the dirge he sings and questions its validity. Until he hears it, he cannot understand that it is he who sings it to himself. To hear it is the first step in recovery. To
Mhm.
question it must then become his choice.
And then Frank, for paragraph 2, sir.
Number 2, there is a tendency, and it is very strong, to heal the song of death only an instant and then dismiss it uncorrected. These fleeting impressions represent the many opportunities given literally to change our tune. The sound of healing can be heard instead. But first, the willingness to question the truth of a song of condemnation must arise. The strange distortion woven inextricably into the self-concept itself, but a pseudo-creation, make this ugly sound seem truly beautiful. The rhythm of the universe, the herald angels sing, all these and more are heard instead of loud, discordant shrieks.
All right. So I'm confused already. All right. The process, I'm starting at the beginning and see if we can tease some of this out and connect the dots. Sentence 1, the process of psychotherapy then can be defined simply as forgiveness, for no healing can be anything else. So it says the process of psychotherapy is simply forgiveness. Uh, did he talk about that previously? Like, this is a summary of something that was said before. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So if we go back into the previous paragraph, where's he telling us that psychotherapy is forgiveness? Do you see it anything in paragraph 8? How about sentence 10 of paragraph 8? For healing tells him, who's him?
Mm.
For healing tells him, I would say me and you.
Yeah,
We only have the one kind of gender here.
right.
For healing tells you and I in the voice for God that all his sins have been forgiven him. So healing seems to be connected with sinlessness, doesn't it?
But then the Course says there is no sin, there are only mistakes.
So if you want to heal what the illness is, it is to let go of the idea of sin and guilt.
Yes.
Let go of the idea that something is wrong. Do we have that much power?
Well, if we're part of God, if we are gods, then anything is possible.
Yeah, and yet that's hard for us to, somehow that's very hard for us to accept.
Right.
Even when we say it intellectually, in our heart, we're still ambivalent about that.
There's a
You
little,
mean little old me? Okay, I can't do anything. I don't have any power. What can I do? I mean, there's a disconnect or a lack of integrity, even when we say it on the level of intellect. Do we really believe that that power within us is that perfect, that illness cannot prevail? Isn't this book literally saying, yes, you do, and that that is the key to healing? I thought healing was when you go to the hospital and they do these tests and surgeries and therapies and chemicals, and that's how healing is done, right?
But that's only for the body, that is not for our higher self. So we
Thank
have
you.
They-
Important distinction that's being made here. And then I'm in paragraph 1, sentence 2. The unforgiving are sick because they believe they are not forgiven.
That's the sickness. The sickness is that they believe they're unforgiven.
Okay. Do you see how we're saying all sickness, like everything else, is mental?
Right.
So let's say it's mental and you change your mind, but 329,900,999 don't. You'll still be impacted by their beliefs. So the unfortunate thing about separation, as false as it is that you can't change your mind alone. And yet it can't be done without you. So do you see how there's innately a service component connected with salvation? If I'm connected to you, I have to save you in order to save myself. Because myself is not myself alone. Have you ever heard him say we're all in this together?
Yeah.
This is a serious version of it, isn't it? We are locked into each other. We are, as in quantum physics, it's called entanglement. Show that whatever I think nudges you, and whatever you think nudges me. If 1,000 of us think the same way, it's a little nudge. If 1,000,000 of us think the same way, it's a bigger nudge. And as it nudges, you'll see the effects of it. What are the effects of a pebble you throw into a pond? Small effects, small nudge. So you don't see the effects of that small thing, because a single pebble alone is not all of it. It's not even close to enough of it. It's not even significant. It's not even gonna be on the radar. But 100 million of us, oh, you'll see some changes and disruptions there, because it's significant, isn't it?
Right.
So the problem is, what is I? Is I you alone?
No.
And yet it can't be I without you either. What a conundrum, huh? Am I getting off track from these two? What about this dirge that begins talking about in paragraph 1? What is a dirge? dirge? Do you
Let's
see
see.
it?
I think it's a lamenting, a lament.
Yeah,
Using
it's a very sad song, and it's slow, and it's sad, and it's full of suffering, and uh, nobody knows. Okay, yeah, it's one of those kinds of songs, and wouldn't you like to do something about it?
Yeah.
Well, Jesus heard this dude sitting by the lake, sitting on this chest, and he was singing, "Nobody knows the trouble." See, they all get to the lake and they anoint themselves and get the blessings, but I can't make it there because I'm stuck here on this and I can't make it to the blessings and anointing. What was Jesus's solution? Do any of you know this one from the Bible?
stand up.
I've heard.
Yeah, he
Is
says,
that the take up thy bed and no?
well, okay, there are numerous examples of where did Jesus heal? In the physical level? Did he
Yeah.
do surgery on legs?
No.
No,
Where did he heal?
in the
Right.
mind.
The mind.
That's the same guy now. You could see how, yeah, that could be the same author this is. Because he tells us healing is not physical. Physicality is a byproduct of the mental. So it's an effect of the mental. So here it says, we sing this dirge and we look for help, not realizing where the help will come from. It's all his power that is being diluted by this false image that he's done something wrong and almost deserves punishment. But we're saying, no, you don't. Get up and walk. Paragraph 2, sentence 4. But the willingness to question the quote unquote truth of the song of condemnation must arise. So, what is that saying to us in terms of the therapist-patient relationship?
That we
What
have to
is
face
the
it.
role of the therapist?
We have to face the woes together.
Say that again. For some reason, my volume must be down. Say it again, Hilda.
To face the woes together. In other words, you analyze it, you face your troubles. You face them so that you can get over them. And you do that by being together with somebody who is gonna help you to do that.
All right. So
In so many words.
then the role of the therapist, to me, this writing seems to be saying, is to see your patient's perfection,
Right.
no matter what.
Sure. Get over it.
Even if you look at them as someone that's flawed, you can't be a good therapist because you yourself are not seeing the truth. So if you're blind, how can you help them? Now, this has a reciprocal relationship, as we're going to discuss a little bit further. But since somebody had to start talking about the first two paragraphs, I gave it a shot. See what you think. We'll read some more, okay?
Okay.
Yes?
Okie dokie.
We're all the way up to Hildegard in paragraph 3.
Yes, we are. The ear translates, it does not hear. The eye reproduces, it does not see. Their task is to make agreeable whatever is called on, however disagreeable it may be. They answer the decisions of the mind, reproducing its desires and translating them into acceptable and pleasant forms. Sometimes the thought behind the form breaks through, but only very briefly, and the mind grows fearful and begins to doubt its sanity. Yet it will not permit slaves to change the forms they look upon, the sounds they hear. There are remedies, it safeguards form insanity.
Let's do one more. Wow, there's a lot there already. Ron?
Yes. These testimonies which the senses bring have but one purpose: to justify attack and thus keep unforgiveness unrecognized for what it is. Seen undisguised, it is intolerable. Without protection, it could not endure. Here is all sickness cherished, but without the recognition that this is so. For when an unforgiveness is not recognized, the form it takes seems to be something else. And now it is the something else that seems to terrify. But it is not the something else that can be healed. It is not sick and needs no remedy. To concentrate your healing efforts here is but futility. Who can cure what cannot be sick and make it well?
So I am a convert to this in theory. I don't know if I can do it yet. I'm on the path of it. You know, I remember Jesus says, say to that mountain, be thy removed, and it'll be moved. I can't do that yet. But I think it's possible now. And so that is progress. But let's go to paragraph 3. What does it mean the ear translates, it does not hear, and the eye reproduces, it does not see? And then it says, their task is to make agreeable whatever is called on.
Disagreeable it may be.
You know, so what is the task of the eye and ear, right? It just talked about those two. What does Jesus say their task is?
To make it conform to what you want it to be.
Okay. And where is what you want it to be found? Where would I go to look for the source of what you want?
In the mind, the ego.
Okay. So you say, I have this terrible pain in my side, or I have a broken leg. Look, see? Or here, let me rattle it for you so you can hear how it's broken. So the proof is in the seeing and in the hearing in this case. Is that really proof? Or is that just witnesses effects of your thinking?
I think what you hear and what you see is really in your mind, and you project it. So
Okay.
project what you're thinking. So the whole thing, I think, revolves around the thought. So if you think you're sick, you're going to be sick. If you think that you're well, you're well. I mean, it's a simple. It's making it more simple than it is, but the idea is, you know, and it's there's a, and I forget which one of the workbooks was where you say for something, some illness, and they say, like, basically, go away, it doesn't serve me, so I'm not going to recognize it. Yeah, I forget which one it is, but I think and really in reality, I mean, when you're talking about our physical being, that there really are times when you are able to just kind of say, go away, like a cramp or something, you know, and you get your mind into a different state, and it goes away. So I mean,
Yeah. So we see evidence of that, but sometimes, hi Sue, we're on page 14.
That's in the book. I mean, not the book, the printed material.
Pamphlet. Okay, we're in psychotherapy, the
Yeah, I
section
know.
called the definition of healing.
Thank you.
And more specifically, we just finished paragraphs 3 and 4.
Okay.
And we were talking about in paragraph 3, it says, the ear translates, it does not hear. The eye reproduces, it does not see. So what we're discussing is that what we see on the outside are the effects of what we think on the inside. Now, maybe I'm using the right terminology when I say we, because remember, what did I say before? I, in truth, is a collective. So the effects of what I see are not only what Jim thinks, but is also impacted by what everyone else thinks. So it's a hard thing to overcome when Jim is the only one, because Jim is still being nudged by what everyone else thinks as well. So the majority of thought, for example, I'm just a victim here. And that's what the ear will be a witness to, and the eyes will witness. It will report what you sent them to confirm. So there was in that first sentence, I'm sorry, paragraph 3, Sentence 3, and maybe Hilda mentioned it already. It says their task, the ear and the eye, is to make agreeable whatever is called on, however disagreeable it may be. So if I think that I'm sick, then the eyes and ears will give me witness to that, and I'll go, see, I was right. As disagreeable as being right is, but see, I was right. Who would rather be right than happy?
The ego would rather be right.
I'm just showing you all the ways that the ego is alive and well. So we bring this problem on ourselves, and we don't have enough gumption to get rid of it because at least, see, I was right. I am a victim. Don't you see it? Why am I so mistreated? But it is confirming, isn't it? It's true. I am a victim. Comments from you. We did 3 and 4. Any comments there? 4 says these testimonies which the senses bring have but one purpose: to justify attack and keep unforgiveness unrecognized for what it is. So now I have this perceived problem, and I am going to attack it to get rid of it. So now my efforts are on fixing the broken leg, okay? And we'll go and I'll get some help to correct the problem. You're not correcting the problem, you're trying to fix the effects. Therefore, the results can be temporary at best. Because you didn't fix the problem, you fixed the symptom.
Yeah, I think in 4, the last sentence says it all. It says, who can cure what cannot be sick and make it well? So all this whole chapter or the paragraphs that we've been talking about is just to satisfy or figure out what's going on in level 2 of our existence, and has nothing to do with what we really are.
Yes. And do you see how it's a tight loop that the ego keeps us seeking but do not find? You can't fix the problem until you fix it at the problem level. And then it will disappear. So I know it sounds almost trite to say that all my problems can be resolved through forgiveness, simply recognizing that it's not true, that the problem is in my mistakes in my thinking. But who is me? What's included in I? In order to see the effect, a change in the effects, there has to be a collective change in the thinking. You cannot be saved in your thoughts alone. Now, don't get me wrong. That's where it must start. But you is not singular in truth. Therefore, it can't be fixed alone. That's why I can't get to heaven by myself. That's why Jesus keeps hanging around, because Jesus can't get to heaven without Jim and Sherilyn and your neighbors in Ukraine and Uganda and the Congo. And I got to help save them in order to save myself. I will be healed by myself, right? That's a setup. What should I really be saying? I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal others. That word's not there. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. Comments here as, yes, hey, Sue.
Am I on? Okay, I'm going to bring a specific example. I have a granddaughter who was very happy, very healthy, had lots of friends. She's a brilliant kid. Life was very good. This was literally in an instant, her life changed. What happened was she finally was diagnosed with POTS, which is a very debilitating disease, and chronic fatigue syndrome. POTS, whether it's positive or negative, you have anxiety through the rafters, and you have exhaustion where you literally stay in bed and can't go to school. She went to school for 3 days. This kid was evaluated as a genius, but she's a pretty healthy girl mentally. And this is a physical disease that affects her this way. Nobody knows anything about this disease. It's absolute limited information. They've been to Stanford University, they've been to Mayo Clinic, they've been all over, and everything they do is reframing the brain. That's how they're trying to fix the disease, or sometimes it writes itself. They don't know why, they don't know how, but it does. Now, it's very hard to tell a 15-year-old girl that she should be in the Course in Miracles. But the fact is, some of the things they are doing are from the Course in Miracles. She had changed her thoughts to change your mind. Well, they're helping her to change her thoughts. That's unity. What do you suggest for someone who's 15 years old, a kid, and her life has totally come to a dead halt?
I think that you would interact with her within the limits that she is able to allow, and try and normalize her and see her as healthy and healed and whole as best you can. Let's talk about POTS disease, or indeed any disease. Is there a direct correlation, given the relationship between you and all your brothers and sisters throughout the world? Is there a direct relationship between your thinking and a disease showing up in you? Is that your thinking directly? Is that you thinking that? Let's take Joni. Joan has an illness show up in her. That was because of Joan's thinking, right? There's a direct relationship between where the disease shows up and the mind that thought about it. True? Not true.
Oh, I think that's true. I think the mind has a great deal to do with disease. I don't know how to cure disease, but my focus is on being well and being healthy. And thank God, knock on wood, I am very healthy.
Well, let me use that if you're in agreement. Are you suggesting that your granddaughter developed Pott's disease because of her thinking alone? She brought it
Oh, no. That's
herself?
impossible. It's literally,
That's the point I'm trying to make to you guys, is that these thoughts produce effects that impact all of us.
oh yeah, and our thoughts come from everybody around us and everybody not around us.
It's a collective. And so all of these things are in the ethos through our thought process, and they land wherever they land. It's a mess. So just because she had Pott's disease, it wasn't her fault.
Oh, nobody said it was.
And just because you develop a decline or a difficulty, it's not something you did necessarily that you did wrong. It's just that this kind of thinking has a collective effect. And it's hard to pinpoint where each of these things are going to land. So we got into it on a collective basis. Ultimately, the only way out of it is going to be on a collective basis. So take the term atonement. Somebody tell me the definition of atonement.
It's the correction of the error of separation.
Of thinking. It's the correction of errors in thinking. Who's thinking?
Our own.
Our thinking.
It's got to be our, because there is no individual. So in order to see the effects of the correction, it has to be a collective change of mind before its effects you'll see a significant change in its effect. Do you see how you're tied into one another, whether you like it or not? And how if you leave anyone out, you're harming yourself. Because I am everyone. I'm Jesus. Well, Joni's Jesus too. I mean, it's no big deal. And that's what Jesus's message was. You're all like me, and I'm like you, and we are like the Father. Isn't that what his message was? Do I have it wrong? I've been wrong before. Was that his message? Is that we're all the same?
Yes.
So how can you treat one way and treat someone else another way? How is that possible if we're all the same? So what I do to my brother, I'm doing to myself. If I want to elevate me but put my brother down, I'm pulling myself down. Nature doesn't operate that way. When it rains on everybody. A rising tide raises all ships. Not just the good ones and not the bad ones, as you perceive it. So these are all principles. You'll find this principle is universal. Nature observes it, we do not. And therein lies the problem. We're all in this together. And I can't raise myself without raising my brother, or the collective effects will simply pull me down. Does that make sense, or am I talking
Yeah.
crazy talk again?
Makes sense.
You won't
That
hurt my
makes
feelings.
sense.
Comments?
Makes sense.
It makes sense to me, but I can't envision how it would happen.
Precisely. And is that a requirement for it to happen?
Probably not, but then where do you start?
Yeah, if we left it to Charlotte, there'd be no hope. However, if we left it to Jim, there'd be no hope either. But my opportunities to come into this study group is not to bring Jim. I have no idea what I'm going to say when we start these discussions. I trust that. I don't want to know, because I do better, I found, when I don't. I want to actually be a communication vehicle for spirit. That's all I want to be. That's what I'm here for. It has nothing to do with me. Would you call that selfless or selfish? Pick ones. I mean, we're friends.
It's
Is
very
it-
helpful, Jim.
I think you have to be selfless.
Yeah, I'm not here to speak for me. I'm here to represent him who sent me. I know it's words in a book. I'm just trying to make it live from my heart. So I won't stay on that track. How are we doing? You want to move on? Okay. Did we get to 5 yet?
No.
And we ended up with who can cure what cannot be sick and make it well. The effects are merely reporting what we think. Do you see why atonement is so important? The correction of errors in thinking will correct their effects. That's your world. So if you want to see a better world, don't work at the level of effects, work at the level of cause. And the cause is not what we thought it was. The cause is in our minds. But it has to be everyone's mind that achieves the correction. That is the state of atonement, when there has been a significant quantitative shift in thinking to produce the new effects. Paragraph 5. Joan, did you read yet?
No,
All right, please read and I'll, no.
okay.
I'll
Paragraph
get-
5. Sickness takes many forms, and so does unforgiveness. The forms of one but reproduce the forms of the other, for they are the same illusion. So closely is one translated into the other that a careful study of the form a sickness takes will point quite clearly to the form of unforgiveness that it represents. Yet seeing this will not affect a cure. That is achieved by only one recognition that only forgiveness heals an unforgiveness, and only an unforgiveness can possibly give rise to sickness of any kind.
And Sue, do you want to read? You're
I
reading.
know my pages, I have it right here, but I don't have the same page numbers.
Oh, all right.
No, I won't read. I kind of find it. I listen.
I'll read it then.
Okay.
I'm on paragraph 6.
Paragraph.
As a matter of fact, I'll be greedy. I'll do 6 and 7 to finish up this section. This realization is the final goal of psychotherapy. What realization? Just so we're clear.
Forgiveness heals an unforgiveness.
All right, from the previous paragraph. How is it reached? The therapist sees in the patient all that he has not forgiven in himself, and is thus given another chance to look at it, open it to reevaluation, and forgive it. Wow. When this occurs, he, the therapist, right,
Yes.
sees his sins as gone into a past that is no longer here. Until he does this, he must think of evil as besetting him here and now. The patient is his screen for the projection of his sins. Whose sins?
The sin of unforgiveness.
No. It says the patient is his screen. Who is his?
I think it's a therapist.
Yes. The patient is the therapist's screen for the projection of the therapist's sins, enabling the therapist to let them go. Let the therapist retain one spot of sin in what he looks upon, and the therapist's release is partial and will not be sure. Are you amazed at this?
Yes.
I thought therapy was for the patient. At any rate, let me read on. No one is healed alone. This is the joyous song salvation sings to all who hear its capital V voice. This statement cannot be too often remembered by all who see themselves as therapists. Their patients can but be seen as the bringers of forgiveness, for it is the patient, you with me?
Yep.
Mhm.
Who come to demonstrate their sickness to eyes that still believe that sin is there to look upon. Yet will the proof of sinlessness seen in the patient and accepted in the therapist offer the mind of both a covenant in which they meet and join and are as one. Whew. We'll probably all be more comfortable now when we just finish all of this and get to something else or get back to the regular Course in Miracles. We thought the regular book was deep, right? Your comments, my friends, paragraph 6 or 7.
Susan,
Dude, there she is. Yes, ma'am.
Well, that goes right along with, I am the patient and the teacher. It goes right
Yes.
along with it, and it makes very good sense. Because you're learning from your client as your client is learning from you. Maybe it isn't the identical situation, but you're definitely learning from the client and the client's learning from you. And a really good therapist is not up here and the client's down here. It also depends on what's wrong with them. If they're very, very sick and express it and they're dangerous, you don't treat them identically to the one that you're working with, where you're both communicating together. That person may not be communicating at all, period. So, however, you will always learn from your patient as your patient learns from you.
So do you think this whole psychotherapy thing is a ruse for something
No.
else?
No,
No.
no.
Do you think that what is really happening in psychotherapy is that the psychotherapist is fixing the patient?
No,
No.
Never
Isn't that
fixing
the way it's generally seen or portrayed?
Yes.
No,
Yes, it is.
He's not fixing the patient. The patient is fixing himself.
I
They're working
understand
together
that.
for the purpose of fixing the patient, so to speak. But the patient is doing the work, if you want to call him a patient. He's doing the work. He's helping himself.
All right. Frank, you had a comment too, as our other psychotherapist in the group?
I think they work it out together.
Yeah, they work it out together.
Did you ever think that the psychotherapist would be in need of help? That's not the way psychotherapy is portrayed, that the psychotherapist needs help.
Mhm.
Right? Isn't that very unorthodox to take an approach like that?
You know, that goes along with, I'm sorry, but that goes along with some people who are terrified to interview a psychotherapist. Or I'm not supposed to say anything because he knows more than I do. That takes place in a lot of cases. They don't want to interview. And the first thing you should do is interview the person to see if he fits with you to begin with. If you have any type of connection where you trust them and can talk to them.
What about if you go for a job interview?
Same thing.
Do the person looking for a job interview your employer, or is it the other way around?
Could be both.
Same relationship, isn't it?
Mhm.
But we've been like, they're holding all the cards, and boy, I sure hope they like me.
not
That's
necessarily though.
What do you
No.
mean, Bill?
Well, as an example of my personal experience.
Yes.
When I was looking for a job and I selected certain companies, I did some research first and I found out what these companies were about and whether they were profitable or whether what they had a future. And then I applied.
Okay,
You
so
know.
you did do some research and kind of did at least a sort of interview
It
of
kind
that
of,
company beforehand.
right, and it kind of helps that when you talk to an employer and kind of let them know that you know a little bit about them and saying, oh, you know, they're interested.
Right. And not just their background, but
Right.
do you, is the usual view of someone looking for a job, are they going to ask a lot of pointed questions to the supervisor? What is
Oh.
your philosophy on the workplace and questions like that? You know, the kind of questions they ask you. What's the worst thing about you as an employee? Loaded questions like that. If you say nothing, you're done, right?
I'm perfect.
Okay. But do you ask them, well, what's the worst thing about you as an employer? That would be on a more even keel, right? But this is not really thinkable in most employer
Yeah.
employee environments, nor in the psychotherapy patient environment.
Right.
And yet, as Sue and I believe Frank would attest, innovations in those fields are trying to level that playing field. But did you really think that the psychotherapist patient or the psychotherapist client relationship was an encounter to heal both? Isn't that what these paragraphs are saying? And were you
Yes.
not surprised?
Yeah.
It's like
And
the psychotherapy thing is really just a cover for something bigger that's going on, an opportunity for the therapist to heal as much that as for the patient. Who the hell is putting these matches together? Who's bringing about these relationships that are suited to help each other? Well, we will probably talk more about that in section 3, the practice of psychotherapy and the selection of patients. If you're a therapist, where do your patients come from? You thought they were sent to you at random, right? They just showed up, right?
No,
Well, what is it, Frank? How do you see it?
I don't know how it happened, but the right patient showed up at the right time.
Okay.
There
Like,
at the right time.
that was a cover up for something that's going on everywhere. For example, the person you ran into on the street the other day and struck up a conversation and found out you had some things in common. Uh, how did that relationship happen? It was a coincidence, right?
It
And
There
seemed
are no coincidences.
well,
There are
then
no-
how
It
could
was
it
a
be
God
a
job.
coincidence? Huh?
It
But-
was a God job. That's what I call it, a
Okay?
God
So
job.
you see, God is working behind all of these encounters. He's got to kind of sneak up on us so that we don't raise defenses. The lengths saviors have to go to save people that don't think they want to be saved. So we're just closing up this section on the definition of healing. And to summarize, healing is needed for both the therapists of the world and their clients. I'm giving deference to my friend Sue here. It is a way to heal both. What is the relationship between a teacher and a student? Whether it's a teacher of God or a teacher in high school, a way to heal both. The Holy Spirit in chapter 12 of the course, the Holy Spirit's curriculum, says no matter what you think, all the stuff that's going on here, it's only two things going on: expressions of love and calls for love, and matching expressions to calls. So when you become an expresser of love, you'll meet the calls for love. Why? So you can answer the call. And those places where you need healing, you'll run into the lowly patients who present your healing for you. Do you see it's mutual?
Right.
Shall we continue?
Yes.
We're back to Cheryl and White, and we're on page 15, Romans 7.
Oh, and I'm page 11. Okay.
Paragraph number 1. Who then is the therapist and who is the patient? In the end, everyone is both.
Yes.
He who needs healing must heal. Physician, heal thyself. Who else is there to heal? And who else is in need of healing? Each patient who comes to a therapist offers him a chance to heal himself. He is therefore his therapist, and every therapist must learn to heal from each patient who comes to him. He thus becomes his patient. God does not know of separation. What he knows is only that he has one Son. His knowledge is reflected in the ideal patient-therapist relationship. God comes to him who calls, and in him he recognizes himself.
Thank you very much. Frank, you want to try paragraph 2?
Okay, think carefully, teacher and therapist for whom you pray and who's in need of healing. For therapy is prayer, and then healing is the aim and its result. What is prayer except the joining of minds in a relationship which Christ can enter? This is his home, into which psychotherapy invites him. What is symptom cure? When another is always there to choose. But once Christ enters in, what choice is there except to have him stay? There is no need for more than this, for it is everything. Healing is here, and happiness and peace. These are the symptoms of the ideal patient-therapist relationship, replacing them with what the patient comes to ask for help.
I'll tell you, I was looking this paragraph 1 over earlier, and I certainly can appreciate the professionalism, if you will, with which Jesus writes, and his remarkable use of pronouns. But I tell you, these pronouns get in my way of understanding a lot of times. And plus, you have to pay attention to whether the pronouns like he, him, his, are capitalized or are a small letter. So I did a little exercise, and let's go through it together and see what you think. See if I wrote it in correctly. Who then is the therapist and who is the patient? In the end, everyone is both. And then I'm going to just skip down to sentence 7. Is it sentence 7? I'm sorry, I'm messing myself up. Yeah, sentence 7. It starts here. Each patient who comes to a therapist offers him a chance to heal himself. Who's him?
The therapist.
Therapist,
Okay. He is therefore his therapist. Who's
the
he?
patient,
The
the
patient.
patient,
The patient is therapist.
The patient is therefore his therapist, and every therapist must learn to heal from each patient who comes to him. He thus becomes his patient. Who's he in sentence 10?
Therapist.
Okay, that's what I put. All right. The therapist thus becomes his patient. God does not know of separation. What he knows is only that he has one son. His knowledge is reflected in the ideal patient therapist relationship. Who's his in sentence 13?
God.
God God's knowledge is reflected in the ideal patient therapist relationship. God comes to him who calls, and in him he recognizes himself. Now I'm in sentence 14. God comes to him. Who's him?
Anyone. who
All
calls.
right, excellent. I'm thinking anyone can be the therapist or the patient.
right,
He comes to anyone who calls, and in him, who's him? Capital H.
The one who calls.
I think it's God.
He recognizes himself.
So who's
God recognizes
himself? God comes to anyone who calls, and in God, anyone who calls
No, the
recognizes himself. Who's himself?
no, I think it's the other way around.
Okay.
You think it's the patient? I mean, the therapist?
I
Yes,
think
because it says
himself is his higher self. Your
God
higher self.
comes to him who calls. So we're talking about this little him, and in him, which now becomes the higher self, he recognizes himself. Himself meaning God. God, I recognize myself.
Okay.
That makes sense.
That's the way I see it.
Okay.
That makes sense.
We're not far apart. I would read it this way. God comes to anyone who calls, and in God, he recognizes his higher self. Okay. It's in the midst of this higher teacher
Right.
that we recognize our true self. So Hilda and I aren't far apart
Yeah,
in
you're
our
very close.
substitution. It's just that the point we're making is that relationships are for the purpose of God being able to teach, are for the purpose of healing the relationship. Where two or more are joined, I am with you also. What is healing? Here we go again.
Wholeness.
So, atonement.
Okay. Healing is the restoration of wholeness. Okay. Wholeness has a synergistic effect where two coming together produces something bigger than either of them can do alone. That synergistic effect, it comes when you work together. Joining together is wholeness. Not working separately is separation. When we join together, it restores power. When we separate, we lose power. Wholeness, healing is wholeness, and wholeness is a transcendent effect called holiness. Healing, wholeness, holiness. So the whole effort of salvation is to restore wholeness. So how is that done? Through relationships. Relationships provide you with an opportunity to restore wholeness or to perpetuate separation. So when you have friends, associates, they push your button, they rub you the wrong way, there are ways to deal with it that still will move toward holiness. Give you one example. If your brother asks you to do something foolish, do it. Why?
I've forgotten the answer to that.
Now, I'm not saying let's Joe go jump off a cliff,
No,
but there are a lot of foolish things that your brothers and sisters might ask of you that really aren't gonna hurt you one way or the
Right.
other, okay? So why would you do it instead of not doing it? Someone says, hey, come go to church with me. Well, I don't really like that church, but why would I go?
you might learn something new.
Okay. And what else does it do?
It links you to the friend, the person.
Enhances the bond with somebody else.
Say that again, Hilda.
It enhances a bond to somebody else.
Is that restoring wholeness?
Mhm.
Or is it maintaining separation?
Restoring wholeness.
Restoring wholeness.
And that is what salvation is. It is accomplished through relationships, and it may be under the guise of a professional psychotherapy relationship. It may be under the guise of a spiritual relationship. It may be under the guise of an encounter at Walmart. It may be under the guise of going out to a city council meeting. But the remedy is always the same. The purpose of the relationship is an opportunity to restore wholeness. Have you ever heard the Course say, every encounter is a holy encounter?
Yes.
That's one of the fairly famous phrases. That's why every encounter is an opportunity to restore wholeness, whether it's on a teacher, a patient, or student relationship, friend to friend, or whatever. That becomes your new mission here. The old one is you're no longer here to serve your little old puny egoic self. Do you accept the mission? Isn't that what they said on Mission Impossible or something?
Something like that.
An adventure. Let's finish this thing up here tonight. Unless you have comments, we went through paragraph 1. Any thoughts on paragraph 2? Yeah. Sentence 5. What is symptom cure when another is always there to choose? Any thoughts on that? Okay, I won't belabor it with you here tonight. Let's continue reading, and we're up to Hildegard for paragraph 3.
Okay. The process that takes place in this relationship is actually one in which the therapist, in his heart, tells the patients that all his sins have been forgiven him, along with his own. What could be the difference between healing and forgiveness? Only Christ forgives, knowing his sinlessness. His vision heals perception, and sickness disappears, nor will it return again once its cause has been removed. This, however, needs to help a very advanced therapist, capable of joining with the patient in a holy relationship in which all sense of separation finally is overcome.
Thanks, Hilda. Ron, you want to read 4?
Yes. For this, one thing and one thing only is required. The therapist in no way confuses himself with God. All unhealed healers make this fundamental confusion in one form or another because they must regard themselves as self-created rather than God-created. The confusion is rarely, if ever, in awareness, or the unhealed healer would instantly become a teacher of God, devoting his life to the function of true healing. Before he reached this point, he thought he was in charge of the therapeutic process and was therefore responsible for its outcome. His patient's errors thus became his own failures, and guilt became the cover, dark and strong, for what should be the holiness of Christ. Guilt is inevitable to those who use their judgment in making their decisions. Guilt is impossible in those through whom the Holy Spirit speaks.
And let me do a bold step here. Let me read paragraph 5, and then we'll discuss it, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Passing of guilt is the true aim of therapy and the obvious aim of forgiveness. In this, their oneness can be clearly seen. Yet, who could experience the end of guilt who feels responsible for his brother in the role of guide for him? Such a function presupposes a knowledge that no one here can have, a certainty of past, present, and future, and of all the effects that may occur in them. Only from this omniscient point of view would such a role be possible. Yet no perception is omniscient, nor is the tiny self of one alone against the universe able to assume he has such wisdom, except in madness. That many therapists are mad is obvious. No unhealed healer can be wholly sane. So we started at 3 and read through paragraph 5. And there's still 3 more paragraphs that I'd like you to finish. We're going to start closing up for tonight. But I do want to devote just a few minutes to these 3 paragraphs that we just read. If we look at paragraph 3, take another look at it and let me know your thoughts. Summarize us, because we got about 4 minutes to cover this. All right. The process that takes place in this relationship is actually one in which the therapist in his heart tells the patient that all his sins have been forgiven him along with his own. Who's his?
Therapist, I guess.
It appears, yeah, the last time you see the word his, I think it refers to the therapist. What do you think, Hilda? You agree?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay. Sue, you agree? Frank, I'm just picking on some folks here.
Yeah,
So, isn't the therapist teaching in order to learn?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right.
The more I teach you that all your sins have been forgiven, the more I learn that for myself, and the more I embrace it, and it goes from head to heart through teaching. Okay.
Yeah.
But the bottom line still is that only Christ forgives. So the therapist and the patient, the client,
Yes.
really are just on level 2, working together and resolving that issue. But the true forgiveness doesn't come from the therapist telling the patient, here they're fine, or the patient says, you're fine, you know.
Is there ever
has-
a situation,
Christ has to come into the picture.
pardon me?
Christ has to come into that union and into that communication between two.
Okay, and
Right.
so how many times will Christ forgive?
Always.
Always, yeah.
Well, technically, he
Infinitely.
only has it, we're talking, if we're talking according to the Course of Miracles, you only have to say that once, and it's forgiven. But we're talking about level 2 people, and we're talking about the repeat offenders, so we have to work with that.
I don't know. I think all I'm saying is if I want to heal, I have to promote forgiveness,
Right,
both in myself and others.
right,
Now, are there exceptions to that? I may have to adjust what it looks like, but the salient point is always going to be the same. I forgive you for your mistaken thinking. It was a mistake. It's not true. It's not true of you, and it's not true of me. Therein is a restoration of wholeness. Sue, your comments here.
I just see it as a beautiful union, and God has promoted it. Therefore, God is within the union itself. And there's also a decision to make by both, and that is if they choose to forgive, if they choose to move forward, and God is the leader.
If
I
they,
see God in everything.
yes. And so it's not trying to fix the problem.
No.
It's assuring both that they do not have a problem. The problem is made up. It's a mistake. The nice thing about a mistake is that it can be corrected. What is the remedy for a mistake? Correction. And that is what is being shared in that relationship, is the correction of errors in thinking. Do you see how all of these relationships are working to bring about correction of errors in thinking so we can reach what the Course calls the atonement? One more, and I'm going to let you guys go this evening. It's in that last paragraph. It says in paragraph 5, sentence 4, such a function proposes a knowledge that no one here can have. And then in the next sentence, it says, only from this omniscient point of view would such a role be possible, yet no perception by definition can be omnipresent. Your thoughts there, and I'm going to close for tonight.
Perception
Here.
can be omnipresent.
No perception is omnipresent.
Omniscient.
Omniscient means all-knowing, right?
Oh,
Yes, no? Frank?
okay.
Yes.
Go ahead, Frank. Did you have more to say, Frank?
No,
No perception can be all-knowing because by definition, perception is only a point of view. A perception is what you see in your individual consciousness. But the mere fact is that you're operating from individual consciousness means you can't see the big picture. But the Holy Spirit in you is not an individual. We've talked about this, right? Your higher self is not an individual. Your higher self, the Holy Spirit, okay, is not an individual. Therefore, it is not trapped in perception. It can lead truly because it sees truly. It sees the whole picture. All right, I guess I'm getting used to this look at the end of another psychotherapy section. So you'll be pleased to know that we only have like about, I don't know, 6 more pages. And then we'll be finished and going into the song of prayer. And I think you'll find the song of prayer is no less deep, but it's almost like the subject matter is so beautiful that you'll find it a welcome relief after the psychotherapy one. I'm just saying, that's just Jim's point of view. Thank you for being here with me. And as usual, we've gone a bit over. Any final comments, suggestions?
I just want to share, this is beautiful too. If you think about it, the therapist and the client are working together with God at the helm, and whatever the outcome is, it's all okay. And they may have to do it 2,600 times to get the point, so to speak, and to achieve the wholeness, but they're together learning how to do it, even if they don't realize it. That's beautiful to me.
Even more beautiful is psychotherapy is just one example of what is going on in teacher-learner relations.
Teacher, learner, student, teacher.
Universally. We're all students.
A kindergartner sometimes knows more than the teacher.
Yes. And so we're all both, if we come together in that spirit of being both a teacher and learner, remember, if you didn't have anything to learn, you wouldn't be here. He said that repeatedly, right?
Yes.
You wouldn't be here if you weren't a candidate for psychotherapy. So we
all need it.
Don't think you've been abandoned as though God didn't care for you. He's put us all in remedial care called planet Earth, the dream world. And this dream world is not something to be feared. The world is a lesson. So be a good student, and I'll see you here next time, okay? Be a good student. Welcome your serial adventures here. It's for our good. Hilda, please close us out tonight.
The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. I am the light of God.
I am the
I
light.
am the light of God.
I am the love of God.
I
I
am
am the love of God.
I am the power of God.
I am the power of God.
I am the presence of God.
I am
the presence of God.
Therefore,
Therefore,
wherever I am,
wherever I am,
God is,
God
God is.
and all is well.
and all.
All is well.
There is nothing to fear.
There
There is nothing to fear.
There is only love.
There is
There is only love.
love.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you, my friends. Get your lessons done, okay? I'll see you next week. I love you.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
Master.
Thank you,
Have a
Jim.
wonderful week.
Thank
Love you
Thank
too.
you.
Have a blessed week,
Good
everybody.
night.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.